has done prep and grade 1, so he's in grade 2 this year.
Okay. And and how's it going? How are you feeling comfortable about starting it up? Like doing homeschooling?
Like, I feel really good about the decision that we've made. I'm just not really confident about how we actually start and what that looks like. And also, I've read a lot about unschooling, so I don't know how that's going to work with my kids and what that will look like either. So, yeah, it's a big shift, a big change.
And I think unschooling can mean different things for different people, and depending on the kids and the circumstances, I guess, as to why they've come out. Some might happily just want to get on with working again, and you setting up a system that runs with them that you all are comfortable with. Other people, yeah. For example, one of my kids, one of them never went to school. My other twins did go to school. One needed unschooling, one didn't. He was so traumatized by the schooling experience, it took over a year for him just to chill and do whatever. And now he is ready to learn and them on learning. We do learning, you do learning from, cooking in the kitchen to shopping, all that stuff, but more book structured stuff. He hated it. You don't have to show your face. It's more an open discussion if you want it, or you can just be on listening and type in a question down below. There's a chat there and you can type in questions and we will see them as well. So you don't necessarily have to be on the screen. And I'll record so then people can go back and watch them again, or for me to say, okay, well, this is an area that really a lot of people were really keen to learn more about. We can do a workshop on it, or we can go into detail on that on a week. Or thing. This is more an open chat thing, sending questions or come up with questions and get tips from me or other people. And then I want to run workshops and stuff to be able to help people from all this. This is kind of where this is headed. So this is more like, if you're in the park and you're having a chat, but you can't really chat because it's busy with the kids or whatever, you can just focus on that and the kids are happy at home.
Yeah.
And Isabella was just talking about unschooling and just starting up this year. So I was basically saying that unschooling is different for each kid, each family. For example, for one of my boys, he had severe anxiety from schooling, getting things correct, perfectionism, fear of doing anything. So I left him for a year, even the whole family, just to give him the space. So then his learning would be more natural learning that we did rather than anything in particular, unless he instigated something and he wanted to learn about something, then we would do it for however long he wanted to do it, and then we just let it go. This last 6 months of last year and coming into this year, he's quite happy to sit and do structured stuff, but again, depending on how he's feeling, how much of that he actually does. So unschooling is very different to each child, and depending on what their needs are and what the background with that is. So therefore, depending on what you're doing with that is what you get started with. Whether or not you do start a structured system like other people follow set curriculums, and varied of those. I had another person wanting to know about the curriculums and stuff to use. Oh, that might have been you, actually. That was you. And that kind of depends on, it depends on the family structure, what the kids are requiring. There's a heap of different ones out there that are set and you can just follow it week by week. Some are limited costs, some have trials, and that's what I was thinking, that might be one chat just about that, because that is quite a variety of things, and depending on who you talk to, who knows what. And so keeping into the groups is still good and asking those questions, because you'll have different people's
I think that's what's been confusing, is just reading a lot of stuff. People seem to use a wide and varied program, so I'm not really sure what's good, what's not.
Can I just suggest something? Because I did a lot of unschooling for a very long time, because we were constantly moving house, and there was just no way I could just keep up with anything structured. It just became overwhelming, and frankly, the kids were picking up on my panic. So I got to the point, there's a fantastic book called Unschooling. Basically, it's a handbook on how to do it. And I'll see if I can post the link to it, because I find it, to me, it was a lifesaver. It was a real breath of fresh air. It was something that took away the fear, took away the panic, took away the anxiety, and a lot of things that you just don't have to do that the kids learn anyway. You know what I mean? But it's all, the secret to unschooling is how you document. And that really is key, because what you'll find is when you actually break down, even going to the toilet, you will find that that is a massive learning curve, depending on how old are your kids?
9 and 7.
Yeah, you will find, like, you know, they're at the stage where they're wanting to learn, you know, money, or they're wanting to learn how to cook, or they're wanting to learn all these different practical activities, but all those things can be broken down into English because you're reading a recipe, you know, maths when you're judging time on how to cook the muffins, and also spatial judgment, which is maths, and science. So there's all those things that you can actually break it down into, but the biggest, easiest thing to do is use your phone. Get yourself a diary app. Okay, and what all you have to do is take a photograph of what they're doing, and just.
So is this documenting for government purposes?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that is the biggest key, because frankly, you can do anything, and by the time you get into the flow of it, you're so well versed in how to word things, and it just becomes a lot easier. But yeah, a diary app that you can take a photograph quickly and just put a couple of bullet points down is really the lifesaver, because at the end of the day you can just upload it to your computer and have that as a print-outable document.
Not
whatever
in
you want to do. Yeah.
In Victoria, when I did my review, I did a review late last year. They actually don't want the photos anymore. That's too that if they do.
Oh, really?
They don't want many, and if they do have them, they'll look at them and then delete them. They don't really want that to be only proof anymore, which is what everyone had thought, because our new rules have come in late last year. Last year, I'm sorry. And then I was one of the ones that got reviewed. So I wanted to know, and I didn't have any photos. I keep forgetting to take the photos. So then I recorded mine on a monthly calendar, for example, and what activities we did even. You could even do that, or put in, I don't know how techie you are, but you could even write it in Word, have a diary, even have a diary and write stuff in that we did today, and thinking of all the different KLAs it might cover, so if you ever got reviewed. But from your kids' point of view, from learning, unschooling can just be, like Melissa's saying, any activity, but it'll incorporate reading, maths. It depends how much unschooling you actually want to give them as well, isn't it, really? Because
how do you know you even
want to have bookwork? Say that again.
How do you know if you even need to
unschool them?
Yeah.
Again, it depends on your kids. For example, mine came out of because he was so highly anxious. He wasn't ready to sit and do stuff. It was terrifying. Yeah. Other kids, that's all they want to do, and they want to keep it similar to schooling. So other schoolers will just set it up like a classroom structure. Like if you can see my house here, I've set up a shed with desks and books and stuff. But we don't always do it, or we'll only do an hour or two, and then the rest of it's natural learning kind of material or research or whatever. And
I've just posted that book link, by the way, in the chat section.
Oh,
and there's another group that's online.
So if you just click on that, you'll see a picture of the book.
Unschooling kind of group that probably has a few strategies in that, but it's more about what your kids are, how they responded from leaving school. Do they look like they need to do stuff on paper in books, or is that actually stressing them out, or is it because they went to school, that's how they think is the only way to do learning? You know, you might.
They certainly haven't had a bad experience at school. They both enjoy learning, so that's not an issue for either one of them. I guess one's probably more used to a very structured education, so she would probably find it quite difficult to not have structure, whereas my son is probably the one that would prefer no structure at all.
Yeah. And he'd be 7?
Yeah.
Yeah. So they're more kind of wanting to play and explore still. They're at that stage that they don't necessarily need to have structure. They might sit down with you and pick up a book that they liked, or they're at the library or something, and you can just be reading like that kind of approach, rather than sitting them down and getting them to do book work. Because really they're still at the very creative, open-ended way of learning. And as they get further up, they not always become that they want more structure, or depends on the kid and their behavior. If they need structure, makes them feel secure and focused. It kind of, there's so many variations. So
and what,
so I hear lots of people talking.
Pauline, just on that point,
can I hold you 1 second? Alyssa iPad Air is here. I'm just making sure she didn't want to get onto video, and if she knew what she was doing just here. There'll be on your screen a view page, and you'll see a video on there, and you should be able to tap onto your video. Like there's a little video machine if you want to come onto screen, or if you're happy to listen, or if you've got any questions, just come down here to the bottom of your page and you'll find the word chat, and you can ask stuff in there and we can see that. Otherwise, just sit there happily and quiet. Just want to make sure you know what you're doing. And I see Michelle's on, but she's not on screen and unmuted, so she's here listening. So, yeah, let me know, Alyssa, somehow if you want to come on.
There's a term for it. I just don't remember what it's called. Is by just placing random things around the house, and the kids will naturally gravitate to them if they're interested, and then you'll get an idea of what they're actually wanting to learn. So if you feel they have a particular, talent or interest or something, placing items of that around the house, and you will find that they naturally gravitate to those things. You can create your own curriculum around that topic. And it's tricky. I just can't remember how it's termed, but that quite often gives you that feeling of control.
Yeah, and I'm a teacher, a primary school special needs teacher as well. So I had the clash of that on top of how I was taught to, so many things. So it's allowing some things to play and experiment to work out what your kids, even if you had books out, or you went to the library and see if they were interested in stuff in there, or researching or looking, or books of interest, and seeing where that takes them, even without even curriculums. Because if you're not sure where they want to go with curriculum yet, you don't necessarily have to follow it. I don't follow a curriculum, but I guess I have books that I know that they like to work with, or that I find I like to work with, is from a teaching point of view, and they gel together. Or, you could even be doing journaling for your daughter who likes structure. She could be writing in a journal every day, talking, writing, sharing feelings, whatever, and she's already writing and reading doing that even.
So a lot of people are talking at the moment about how busy they are planning the next term. What are people planning? I'm kind of like, am I supposed to be doing something? I don't know. I'm kind of, what is everyone planning? Are they going into detail of every day what they're going to do, or?
I'm trying to respond here to Alyssa. She's got her hand raised. You speak, maybe? If you've got your hand raised, you should be able to come on and either write a question in here or unmute yourself. What's on your page? I don't know what's on here that's causing. These are the new techie things I need to learn. But if I don't try, I'll never get to know. That's what I say. If I put it off any longer, I'll just get on and try. Wow. From planning point of view, I go from my kids' emotional stuff, or that's why I've been putting on the wheel of balanced wheel and the 5 love languages and emotional scars, to see how everyone's feeling and what the kids want to focus on in their learning, in their life. For example, my daughter would like to learn to be able to cook than she does now, but she also would like to improve on her reading, and she wanted to do more horse riding activities, for example. So they were things that she said she wanted. And so now I will help her create and incorporate that in our plan for the week. I guess it depends on how planned you want to be. Like, I started off doing planning ideas for the group, and then I thought, no one's even in planning mode at the moment. So let's work on our emotional well-being and what our needs are, including the parents. Because one of the things that came up in my poll, I did a poll late last year about what areas are people concerned for the year. And one of that was the balance of life and the learning part of it. And for me, being a single mum of 3 teens, young teens, getting balance in life is important. If I'm not calm, relaxed, happy, balanced, then nothing's going to work no matter what we do. Everything's going to be too much. So hence why I started off for this January focusing on me as in our home, but also in helping you guys is helping yourselves first get some needs of yourself met and making sure your self-care is being looked after and your goal. You've got some goals too. I don't know if you saw the post with my daughter, but we did some of that stuff with goal setting already. So that's the planning, and then you see what everyone's needs are and emotional well-being stuff, and incorporate that into your planning, the starters. And then I would assume then you could then with your planning, if that's enough for now. Because I've got a question here from another person that wanted answers. She's just pulled her 13-year-old out, wanting to know how best to unschool her, which we kind of talked a little bit about, but how much study time does she need and how is she going to get social? Wow. Especially amount of time of study really depends on the individual child. Like how you've got one child you said that's really, really keen and wants to structure stuff. Well, then they might last an hour, they might last 2 hours. But again, if you're breaking it up with book work to cooking to doing shopping and money and meal planning or adventure stuff, then the hours can be endless or they can be, short.
Can you hear me, Pauline?
Yeah.
I can hear you, yes, but no video.
Yeah, no, I'm having trouble. The reason I just wanted to interject a little bit and talk to Lee specifically, they're all very similar things to how I've felt for a number of years homeschooling. And I felt such pressure in my first year that my head would explode. And I don't mean to hide behind this blackness. I wish I could get my video working, but it's not working. But
Okay.
I felt such stress, and I wasn't enjoying it. And I wasn't enjoying being a mum even at that stage, because I felt the pressure of homeschooling and am I keeping up with Jane, who's got 1,000 books and her kids are reading and doing artwork and all these things every day. And it was so overwhelming for me that I just couldn't think anymore. And I just going, the same words that you're saying is, people are planning already. Should I be planning? What am I planning? How do I? And you know what? The second year I just went, I'm not homeschooling at all. And I never wanted to unschool. The words sounded very hippie to me, and I'm not particularly hippie, but I'm not against them. I'm not against that lifestyle, I should say. But then after chilling for a good 6 to 8 months, I looked back and I looked at the definition of unschooling, and I went, oh, I'm an unschooler. Like all these things that I didn't think I wanted to be, I was. And that was my second year. Third year was a bit different. We tried to do a few different things, more activities and that sort of thing. But I found that my rhythm is not in trying to keep up or even trying to look at what other people are planning already, because otherwise my head will explode.
Yeah.
Like Pauline was saying, the well-being. Yeah, exactly. So like Pauline was saying earlier, the emotional well-being, my entire 2018, that's all that it was about for all of us. So not just me, not just my kids, my husband, all four of us, because if we don't manage that first, then for me in our house. So we've sort of settled and we're starting to look at things. So we're just getting the kids computers. We don't know why. We have no plan. But we just thought, you know, we'll start with that. They're wanting a little more independence. We have a shared family computer, but that's what they were sort of seeking. So I don't know if that kind of helps you. I find meeting people like yourself gives me hope, because I don't feel alone. I don't feel like I'm the only one that's not planning yet, or...
Yeah, I think that's kind of it. After reading it the last couple of weeks, I felt pressure to, oh my gosh, I'm not doing anything. What should I be doing? And I don't even know where to start.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of like, I have no idea what that looks like.
Yeah.
So that actually makes it more scary than what it probably is.
If you don't mind me interjecting, I think the biggest priority is finding your rhythm, finding where your happy places are, because it's where your happy places are, you are almost receptive. It's like what Pauline was saying, the emotion wave.
I think part of that is, how do you find that? Like, I'm used to my kids being at school, so I've had lots of time to myself, I guess. So going from that, and like normally school holidays, you sort of get to the end of January and you're ready for your kids to go back.
What is it?
And I'm kind of feeling like, what's that going to look like for me to get my space and to, you know, also have their space?
Can I give you a little tip from a friend of mine who's also a homeschooler, and she's got 5 kids now. And they range from 15 down to 1. And what she institutes every single day, regardless, is she institutes downtime. That everybody has to go to their bedrooms for between, I think it's 1 and 2:30. And it's like they've had their learning, they've had their whatever they did in the morning, whether it was writing, whether it was whatever. They did it all in the morning, and then they had their 1 to 1.5 hour downtime, mandatory, regardless. They didn't have to sleep. They just had to be quiet for an hour and a half in their bedrooms by themselves. And that's where you get your time. You can chill out. You can have a cup of coffee. You can have a snooze, whatever you feel like you're wanting to do. Try and put a couple loads of washing on, whatever. That's all part of finding you and your time, because it's scheduled into the day. But finding the way I found my happy place and my rhythm was, I took my kids out of school to figure out if I could cope. And that was a big thing for me, because I thought, well, if I can't cope with this, the whole thing's going to go pear-shaped and it's just not going to work. So I need to find out if I cope. And what I found was, the things that I do on the weekend with the kids, the things that I actually enjoy doing with the kids, that was my rhythm. That's what I based my rhythm around. So if you don't know what you do with the kids during the week, and it all becomes too harried and, you know, regimental, because it's just, you get up, you get ready for school, you go, and they come back and whatever. What I would focus on, what you're doing on the weekend to enjoy yourselves, whether it's going to the park, whether it's going to the library, whether it's going to the shopping centre, whatever that happens to be. Basing to start off your learning curve from there. Like if it's going to the park, you can be collecting leaves and studying the different types of trees, you know. Or if it happens to be going to the library, see what types of genres the kids are interested in. You know,
bring those leaves back and do art and paint and whatever with them.
Can I ask you, Lee, what do you do? Like, what is your, do you have, like, were you a teacher or a...
No, I was an executive assistant.
So there's some pretty cool skills you have there. I keep saying to my husband, he's a graphic designer, and I say, share you with the kids. You're amazing. And so do that. And I sure you are spectacular. So share that with the kids. Share whatever makes you happy with them.
And that's
because that's learning.
Term is just about exploring and spending time with your kids. and you'll see, and now because you're tuned in, after a while, it takes a while for you to be tuned into homeschooling, and you kind of just naturally pick up on something that the kids do or say or you're doing, and you just naturally go, oh, let's go on down this tangent and learn this little about this, or do you want to learn some more about this, guys? Or, you know, and play with it for as long as it takes. It might take longer than a term. Like the whole idea of unschooling or getting the rhythm could be happening in a few weeks. It can change if you did, or it can take a year or more, depending on, you know. So wouldn't even maybe even look at any curriculum for a while and just play with being home with your kids. And that's a whole new world on its own to discover, and finding times for to all have time on your own, because you're probably not used to being in it. Like, you know, you hear people going back to school because they've had enough of being in each other's pockets. Well, homeschoolers, we all the time. So we have to find ways in each day to create the space between ourselves, for each one of us. Because and sometimes then downtime actually after a while becomes a natural thing in the family. It just you pick it up on somebody. Yeah. Someone says they need to have downtime or whatever, and it does happen over time. It just gradually, a lot of these things, and that's where it is. You're true. It's very overwhelming at the start, and you are comparing, and you are feeling under pressure until you realize that there is no right or wrong in this.
Yeah.
As every one of you is happy and doing things you love, the rest just comes. You know?
Can I just also mention too, there's a really, really helpful, sorry, I'm just getting the link for you as well. I started this when I started homeschooling, and I found it very helpful if you find you're getting to the point where you want more support and you want a bit more structure, but you're still involved, and it's a little bit more relaxed. This curriculum we got involved with called Homeschooling, and you can pay for it by the month. You don't have to pay for it up front, which is really helpful. It's called Homeschooling, and they get the children to do some reading exercises to see where their reading levels are at, and they'll actually find the curriculum according to that particular reading level. And I found it really good for primary school. So if you find you just get to the point where you just, I just can't do this for whatever reason, and it's just not me, that's okay too, because there's a myriad of options available. But we started this, and my kids loved it till they started high school. And high school, they just wanted more free learning, more natural learning. So it just to the point where, so I've just posted the link there for you. Explore. They do not have a maths option. They say to go to Mathletics or another online option for maths, but they cover every other subject in the key, and they will also help you register. If you're having trouble registering in your state, they will also help you register, and they're actually both teachers who started it.
Well, whereabouts are you living, Isabel?
Sorry?
Where do you live? Are you in Victoria?
Yeah, West Meadows.
Oh, you're not far from us.
Yeah, no, she's in Kim's group, aren't you? Well, that's where I think you're from. Yeah, from Kim's group. Kim's group's quite 500 plus members have tapped in. A lot of them obviously on the west side of Melbourne. When we're up in the country up here, so I'm just out of Melbourne. But and that's it. There's so many different curriculums. Even lately, I've been watching pages, and Simple Minds or Simply Minds is another one that's really low key, a lot of hands-on stuff and not very expensive. There's so many varied things, and you can do things online. You can do book work, you know, but. Even for B, who asked me a question about her 13-year-old, her thing is about things that don't cost money and socialising. Again, over the term, you'll find the things they're really keen on, and try to tap into if it's an activity paid, but there'll be other things where you can just catch up socially in the network groups, and the kids can socialise, and then they find kids that they connect with. Or you can do online, like Melissa and Michelle's children do gaming stuff online with each other. So there's ways like that the kid, you don't have to leave the home to take the child to go out and socialise as much.
Yeah. So that's another question that I have. Like, how do you balance screen time? Like, I'm very aware of how screens affect children,
Yes,
and
my
kids particularly, if they sort of go over an hour of screen time.
$1 million question, Lee.
Go a bit crazy. But a lot of programs are online, and it's like, okay, well, what does that look like then? Because it's education, but it's also screen time, and I don't want them on the screen all the time. I want them to be actually hands-on.
And because they're at home. Yeah, and because they're at home, they've got that more time to...
Well, that's true.
Time as well. And that's a time out thing for parents as well, because the kids are there quietly. Then we've got some free time. Kind of thing.
So I don't like school holidays are bad because you have to allow them to have that time, and it's like, oh, it's only school holidays, it's fine, but this is going to be all the time. So
and then there's variations to that, and I'll get Melissa to share something in a minute that she does with her kids. Her kids are older, in their teens, like later teenagers. Mine are pre-teen, early teens, and so is Michelle's. But when we're doing structured, like January, I go, oh gosh, they're on screen time too much. Or like today, I go, well, today you're planning to have this many hours on or off or whatever. And at these times, sometimes we do that as well. So we sometimes set a time, sometimes we set a time limit. Or I say they've got to do some activities, depending on, like, we've had days of it because of the heat here, that's unusual. But if it's a term thing, then I actually plan it and we structure it in as a planning time. So they've got to get certain things done before they get it, or way might work.
I get some housework done.
Maybe mine a bit to see where it fits best. But yeah, because it is a thing that it can be used a lot. But then see, I'm going to be maths online, reading eggs online, but I class at an educational time. That's okay because it's broken up from that fun techie time. Yeah. Melissa or Michelle, add to that if whatever you guys do.
I'll have quite a bit of you go. What do you say about that, Michelle?
It's interesting that you bring that up, and the way you bring it up, I feel like we're twins today. But my kids change with too much technology, and I know this, and we've experienced that for a while. And my eldest has just got on this game with Pauline's eldest, and he thinks that's the greatest thing on earth. He's catching up with his mate. They're improving on skills and all sorts of things, but he's asking for it more often than I would like. And we've had the same thing, like it's school holidays, let's relax a little bit, let them on, but then we pay for it for weeks afterwards. And what I mean by pay for it is that's all they can come up with is it's a quiet day, so technology. We've had jobs to do technology. So over this school holidays, with particularly my eldest, I've said to him, he'll say, oh, I want to go on and play with Jess. And I'll say, no problem, you can organise it for whatever time. But I'm more likely to say yes if say, the kitchen was cleaned and the toilets were scrubbed. And so he's going and doing those things, whether that's slave labour, I'm not sure, but I'm enjoying it. And I don't know.
And I guess you don't always want it to be a reward system either, do you? Because
no, that's right.
Well, I don't like the idea of reward systems, but I think they're useful as well. But I'm still torn about whether that's actually a good way.
Whatever works. Like we don't. We have a system for us that we don't pay our kids for jobs that they should do as part of being part of the family. Yeah. There are expectations on them here, and if those expectations aren't met, then they can't expect to have screen time or tech time, or we kind of meet them in the middle with that. And it's not that I only get them to do jobs for technology. They do jobs all the time. But I'm very similar to you, I think, and that's kind of where we're at. We don't, particularly from my 14-year-old, in 4 years, he's driving and he's managing life more independently. So, look, I'm not against a bit of slave labour, to be honest.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that at all. I've used it myself. It's all good. I just don't know, where the balance is. I guess screen time is definitely something that affects my kids' behaviour. So I'm just not sure how far.
Then you have to put boundaries around that. If it's affecting their behaviour, there has to be then a boundary system put in on whether or not scheduled time and for a short limit. Like you see them change maybe after half an hour, then you cut it off at 25 minutes too. And only not choosing it need to be near bedtime, for example, or something like, or better times in the day, like after lunch. You've had some stuff in the morning, you've had lunch, it's their break time, 25 minutes, and then it's done, and that's it. And then, once it becomes more of a norm to them, then it'll be accepting, and then they'll have the creativity left then to go target to do something else different. Do you know what I mean? And it's hard in holiday mode. We're in holiday mode, and that's why I say that differently to being because you have a bit more of a structure, and because that's what I'm doing with my kids. Yesterday I said, I'm sick of seeing you on tech. Today you're going to clean out one box in your room, and I'm going to see you play with 2 other different things before you even go back on tech. And if you don't do that, and then I said, when term comes into play, then that's what we're going to do, even though we don't structured term, you know what I mean? Like, make it a little bit. This is the holidays. This is when we a bit more structured with our stuff because you got to catch them before it affects them, and then keep allowing for that creativity. And I guess that's what, like Melissa's saying, even having things out that are different. Even this
that's a great idea.
Week when we got that free time, let's try the Lego box and let's see what creations we can make with the Lego. We've been, over the holidays we did swimming and stuff. Let's make our own swimming pool design and let's put all this together and be creative, even their stuff that they've got, and show them ways if they haven't already come up, and kids are pretty switched on.
Yeah, that's right.
Melissa, you wanted to say something?
I was just gonna say, I'm at the other end of the spectrum now because my kids are now 15, almost 16, and almost 14. Well, on the way to being 14, and it's like, if you don't put your boundaries down now, you're going to lose it. You've got this amazing niche opportunity to get your expectations and your boundaries and your schedule in. Now is the time to do that, even if it's just around gaming or it's just around the things you want them to do around the house, whatever that happens to be. Do it now before it runs away from you, because I tell you, it's easy done. And, all of a sudden you're 6 months down the track and you're just going, what the hell am I doing? And the kids are already used to not cleaning up, and they're already used to having more game time than they're used to. And it's like, no. But what we've done in our house is, because, as I said, my kids are older, but I've now taken on a part-time job around my husband's hours. So we've actually transferred the entire house cleaning over to the children. 100%. There's no ifs, buts, whys, or whens. They get paid their pocket money, not because they clean the house, but because it's an allowance. It's just what they need to be kids. They want to go down to 7-Eleven and get a Slurpee. They want to do, it's not paying for their job. But what we have done, because we have transferred that entire cleaning ability to the kids, and they are old enough and big enough to do it, they will get paid a second lot for making that work efficiently and consistently. Yeah. Because as far as we're concerned, that is life training, because they're going to have to do it in their house one day. They're going to have to, and all 3 of them have to do 1 night a week cooking. Wow. So it's part of what that we're getting them to do now. They're not quite there yet. It's only been about 6 to 8 weeks, but it's getting to the point where they know that what they have to do, and they know the expectation. And what we revolve around the gaming boundary is they have to have their morning jobs done before they get their controllers back.
Yeah.
Now, they're older now. We don't limit them as much on the screen time because it is holidays, and we're now enrolled in distance ed. So their schoolwork will be sent to them just before school starts.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things they still have to answer to teachers, and we haven't done this before. So I'm sorry, we did it last year, but we're doing it again this year. And prior to that, it was all unschooling. But it was one of those things I found that if we take their controllers away, they can't access the game at all. They have to have their jobs done, and they know that they have to hand them back again an hour before dinner, because an hour before dinner they have to have the table cleaned up and set. Whoever's cooking on that night is cooking, and they don't get to have them back until all the washing up is done and dishwasher's unpacked and everything's done for the night.
That's great. I know what you're talking about. We have an 18-year-old who's just finished year 12, and we tried to implement a lot of stuff as a teenager, which was
Too late.
Yeah, it was way too late. We lost the battle.
Yep.
So no, I totally hear you, and that's definitely the plan.
Yeah, but taking away their controllers until they're done.
You can start.
I mean, I've got a lady I know who actually turned the internet off. And I don't know how she does it, because I found, like, apparently there's a Google thing that you can turn your internet off now, and you can turn certain appliances off and all this sort of stuff now. I haven't figured it out yet, but apparently that's another thing you can do as well. And they have no control over it. So that might be an option.
But that's it. And it's the same with your natural learning. You're just incorporating life skills. Like my kids, when they were little, would just help to set the table, to washing the food. Now they're up to cooking. My kids even cook now. Everyone's got a night where they either assist me or cook the meal themselves as well. And they're only 11s and 13s. But
wow, that's awesome.
Part of our natural learning. And we've got the opportunity because we've got them all the time with us, so we can teach them so that when they go, because what I learnt last year, I was working with a group of teens at a high school here, and the thing that teenagers want to learn is life skills, budgeting, meal planning, cooking, all this stuff that naturally parents would teach them, to what you'd think the schools would even teach them, even about their personal emotional well-being and how to deal with stuff. It's not taught. Parents don't provide it. We're blessed with being homeschoolers that we can create this for our kids. So I would call that schooling. It doesn't, and all incorporates all the things about the KLAs that we want by natural learning and life skills. Because and they can start early, and that's where the reward system with the chores is not necessarily even to need it, because it becomes a normal part of life. It's like, okay, at 9 o'clock, like in our house, I've got to set up a bit of a system, being that we're all the same, busy, and things that I've got on. And so like it might be, I've got on the planner, 8 to 8:30 is when we tidy up and clean up so that we can sit down at 9, if we're going to sit down at 9 and do learning at that time. 12 o'clock's our lunch break. 1 o'clock's quiet reading time, meditation, whatever. By 2 o'clock, we can then go off and do activities or whatever. Like, you can write it as simple as, or as extreme, like as detailed as you want. And incorporating is their life skills or things that they want to learn. Or for me, my kid thinks about well-being. I have 2 children that suffer severe anxiety, and their emotional well-being is paramount, and how to keep life balanced. And forever, every day they ask, what's on today, Mum? And that's not because I forced it. I plan like that because that's how I get things achieved. But I don't necessarily make them have a set structure. But how structure does make them feel more comfortable. They need to know ahead of time what's happening. So that's one tool. And also being flexible is the other tool. You know, they've got to, balance that all out. So I don't, hopefully some of this information we're sharing with you is giving you some insight that there's no pressure.
I have one other question.
Yeah.
How do things go with, we suffer a lot of sibling rivalry, and my kids are both very competitive, particularly my daughter who's older. So she has this expectation that her brother needs to be doing what she's doing because she's a perfectionist as well. How do you guys deal with just that interaction and it being positive and encouraging rather than it being a negative?
Oh gosh,
So much.
she's asking all the good questions.
Wow, we're covering them all today in one session. Thank God Zoom gave another 40 minutes extra. Or unlimited. Go for it, Melissa. I see you
I'm
on there.
sorry, we can do it another session. I just thought I'd
No. I was trying
funny.
to play version so that we could go longer because last week we couldn't stop talking after 40 minutes, right? So I thought, this week I'll play.
Right.
But it wouldn't let me do it. It says, no, you've got to get rid of all the pop-ups. And I'm going, I haven't got time to, I don't even know how. So it just told me before, you can go as long as you like again this week. And I go, sweet. So go for it. All right, Melissa, fire away. I can see you stewing there.
I've got 3 children, extremely different. And the twin eldest are, but you couldn't get 2 more different children. So, and they're boy-girl twins as well. And my girl is Asperger's, so she's very black and white and she doesn't have a filter. So, whereas her twin, her older brother, he's one of those peacemakers and, task-orientated and, and he, like, all 3 of them at the moment have got this thing, well, that's not my job. That's not my job. I don't have to do that because it's just not my job. My husband's a nurse. He goes, don't ever get into medicine, he said, because you'll be doing bloody everything. And it's like, but having said that, we made the fatal mistake of saying for example, housework chores, if all the chores are done, you have to work as a team and you have to make sure you communicate to each other how you're going to do it, when you're going to do it, and how often you're going to do it, right? Now, that was a massive, massive mistake because all 3 of them are so different. All 3 of them are competitive, and all 3 of them, it would be World War III every single day. And I got to the point where my husband and I were actually going out for dinner because there was no plates washed. And I would say to the children, well, tough. I'm not cooking because there's no plates washed and there's no stuff done. Well, then we discovered if we actually dealt with them separately, and each one of them would actually have their own jobs to do and they didn't have to converse with the other one, then they would actually get the job much more often and more consistently done because they didn't have to answer to anybody. Now, we had to sit them all down and explain to them that they were totally different people and they did things differently. They had different personalities and they did things in a different, perspective and light. So they had to understand that just because Daniel was going to do and he would get up early to do the vacuuming and the lounge room and the dining room area, Eden was sleeping in the lounge room because of the air conditioner. And Eden was not happy that she was being woken up at 8 o'clock in the morning on holidays. So Eden would say, well, that's the consequence of sleeping in the lounge room. If you slept in your bedroom, you wouldn't have that issue. So, and because she has Asperger's, it was like, no, my way is the right way. There's no other way. I can't understand any other way. So therefore, it becomes, no, you have to allow your choices, they may affect other people, but your choices are your choices and will have the consequences of your own choice. So, look, competition and competitive natures are always going to be a bit hard to deal with, but at the end of the day, they know that they're not, their personalities, for example, your son might be a lot more easygoing than your daughter. Well, your daughter has the ability to get XYZ accomplished far more quickly than your son does, but your son does something totally different and does it beautifully in his own time, and it's just that it has to be a personality discussion because well, that's what I found anyway with my kids.
And we often have family meetings about something that might come up.
Yeah.
Or I set a night, or I just bring it up and say we're having a family meeting and we discuss some of these things that are going on and how can we work around it, respecting that other people are different and we all do things differently. But also, even from a positive thing going on from how we're feeling with even if you're doing any of the balance of life stuff or any of that, and even if you're not, looking at everybody's qualities and strengths and differences together, even in your family meeting or part of your learning, so that you are bringing up the differences as well as, but their strengths, not necessarily a bad thing. It's like, often people look at ADHD being a bad thing. It doesn't mean it. That means they've got other qualities in other places that we don't have. So it's a bonus. And that is, like you said, Melissa, having certain things that are just set for that child because that's how they work and that child, and maybe only a couple of things together, but maybe you're in it together. Like, even playing a board game, that can cause all sorts of things to happen.
Oh, yeah.
Great opportunity then to learn about how to socialize, how to accept whatever is happening, or let's play it your way this time, let's play it your way that time, so that everyone gets that bit of give and taken as respected and valued and heard, but also compromise and understand another person's perspective, which is not always easy to understand someone else's point of view, especially when they are teenagers, but especially if they've got other things going on.
I'm going to buy my family the card game, The Art of Conversation. So they actually learn how to talk to each other. Because I tell you what, it's like, oh, just the demands. And they don't know how to actually say, would you mind? It's like, you haven't done X, Y, Z. No, how about saying, would you mind helping me do X, Y, Z? Oh, no. It's like, no, you have to do this. No, the diplomacy skills. There is no diplomacy in kids these days. They have no idea about diplomacy.
And I think it's that teenage year stuff coming in too. Like, my kids never spoke to each other like any of the things that they're starting to do now, or how sensitive their feelings are and how easy something upset them now. So getting back to being 7 and 9, you've got a few years ahead of you. So you'll be able to set up a few things and teach them things without all these hormones and these brain changes that are happening and struggling with their stuff and their emotions. And our kids are at home. So I think, thank God they are, and they're not at school, because know how hard it is for teenagers at school. No wonder they're suicide. No wonder they're not coping. When you see your own children and they're in a safe and happy place, God forbid, that all these emotions and all these changes of a child that you thought was so quiet and compassionate and loving has turned into something completely different at times, or a lot of the times.
Then you got to undo it. It all.
Or you've got to transition that, and you spend many of your days and hours talking to them or trying to find a way to help them stay grounded and connected in all the turmoil that's going on in their brain as it's changing. And a lot of it is out of their control, but still having to respect that there's other people in the home that also need to be respected, no matter how you're feeling about whatever is going on for you, and that's our discussion many a time here between two siblings. The other one's just whatever, but there's two siblings, and male and female. One is got the ego stuff going on, I think, and I think has to have things in a certain way, whereas and not respecting the female. And I'm going, oh my God. And I keep talking about how we need to not do that, but it doesn't really change their behaviour, but at least it, pops maybe some thinking. But I've been studying a girl named Alison Davies, who does a lot of brain work, studies kids, she does music therapy, but she works with children, adults, teenagers, and how the brain changes, particularly in these teenage years, or when we're in anxious mode, and what our brain actually is doing, and what tools to change it, tools to see what's actually happening, and understanding that. And I've always taught this way, is usually a behaviour is telling us there's something going on for that child. It doesn't mean to say the child is nasty, vindictive, whatever. It's usually something going on, and often in teenagers, just because their brains are changing and their brains are trying, the child brain's trying to become an adult brain, and it's actually trouble dealing with that in a world that's over a sensory stuff. I did a lot of about sensory overload and how much that affects what happens with the child and their learning and life, let alone us as adults, you know. But their brains haven't developed, so therefore the brain is struggling to cope with all this stuff. But that's another topic for another day. That's really fascinating how all that changes with our kids. Not even just, you know, going shopping with your kids. Now, you might find this with going shopping with the kids, and how can be very overwhelming at times, because the kids are going question, ask, wants to learn something about this, wants to try to add up the money. You're trying to decide how much money you've got, how much food you need, what you're doing. And there's noises around, there's lights everywhere, there's colours everywhere. That's sensory overload, bang, right there, without any hiccup about to happen or is happening. And how we cope with that and what we do with that is just, and I think, well, my kids with anxiety, now I see it even clearer why one of them now will not go into a shopping centre. He cannot walk into a shopping centre. He will not go anywhere there's a lot of people anymore. He can't do any of that. And it makes sense. We're in sensory overload. There's just too much going on. And if you're in a heightened state, it just heightens it even top notch. So, but yeah.
That's great.
So I hopefully
a lot of useful information there.
Pardon?
You know, great. I feel less stressed, so that's good.
Yay! And that's what I'm trying to do with the three of us were the only ones on last week, and we talked about that. I've been thinking about doing something like this for ages, but I wasn't sure how it was going to be taken on, how it would work. But after talking last week, even if you're in a group, like a network group, and you socialise that way, you often don't get time to talk about this stuff properly. And also there's people, or you're feeling isolated because you're trying to make decisions, or I've got some stuff going on at home that particular week and you've got no one to really talk with it, or you're living in the middle of Australia and you're totally isolated. So it kind of reiterated that I do need to do this for you guys and for myself, and talk about stuff and ask questions and support each other, because
that's great.
Better for everybody, the parents, the kids, the whole thing, because all the questions that come on all the pages, particularly the big pages, they're really, really juicy questions. And I think it's better to get better answers through talking, because you can talk it out, like.
Yes, well, I thought about raising the screen issue, and then realised it's just too complex to actually do through messaging. Yeah.
And you can get some insight, but I think through talking you just seem to get that bit more information, or you're not feeling like you're the only one and you're not on your own, and there's people to hold your hand or give you tips, or
And look, it's also a very controversial subject as well, because you get people in the homeschooling arena who are very anti-screens completely, and then you've got other people who actually use screens 100% in their learning perspective, and then you get other people who they'll jump on the judgmental boat and go, but you shouldn't be doing this, and your children does this and your children do that. But that's what works for them, you know what I mean? Like, that's okay, because everybody's rhythm is different. And if you find that your rhythm gravitates towards screens, and that's when, for some unknown reason, the magic happens, then the magic happens for you, and that's okay. But other people, they thought, like this friend of mine I was telling you has 5 kids, and she's a homeschooler. She doesn't let the kids have any screen time, and they're going to a self-sustaining off-the-grid property. They're going to be planting, God knows how orchards and veggie patches and have llamas and whatever, but that's right for them. I mean, I love the romance of that, but there's no way I'd ever do it. It's just not me. But I love the idea of it. So I'm never going to judge her that she's been able to achieve it, and she's not judging me for the way I'm starting to look at the way I'm doing with my kids. I love the idea of world schooling, taking the kids and traveling everywhere. That would be my dream come true.
That'd be awesome.
Financial constraints are obviously going to be a little bit of an issue. But there's just there's so many dynamics, and you've just got to find what's right for you. And don't let anybody change your ideas and your thinking, because what is your family's flavour is right.
And what is
right for you.
And what is yours is yours. Like, no one's in the family unit really enough to even make opinions, and which is what you find in homeschooling. You have a lot of people with very strong opinions, and you've just got to go with what's right for you and your family and your gut, because we can give you all the advice as well. It's still what's for you. And the guide on this is not a judgmental place to be, and people are free to say what they want to say without any fear of that. Because that is so important for us as people. But our kids need us to be free to do, and that's what I teach my kids. Like, they'll say, such and such about something, or I said, because we're free to make our own choices. We don't have to do it because so-and-so doesn't like it, and our uncle so-and-so says this and it hurts our feelings. But it doesn't mean to say that what he's saying is right. That's his opinion, and he's okay to have it.
Yeah,
you could have said,
which is even what I've experienced just in making the decision and people hearing about it. That's caused a whole lot of interesting conversations with people that are very close to me, which, but anyway, that's okay. I'm okay with that.
My biggest suggestion to you, Lee, is don't use the term unschooling, because everybody has got a bloody opinion about unschooling. It's like, if you're not a hippie with the dreadlocks and the whole living on the land in a camping teepee, you're not unschooling. Well,
yeah.
Oh, look, and we're here to educate other people.
And use the term natural learning. Natural learning is a lot more acceptable than unschooling.
Yeah.
Okay.
But because everyone,
I've been roasted when I've said unschooling before, and they've gone, you're not really unschooling, you're using a television. Oh my God, it's like, just be aware.
Yeah, cool.
There is a lot.
Ladies, I'm really sorry, but my phone is about to die, so if I leave you, that's why.
Oh, that's okay. I think we've done a good over an hour chatting anyway, so. But
thank you. I really appreciate everyone's input and advice, and yes, I can relax. It's all good. I'm happy.
And just go with the flow and find your feet and have fun and play with it. There's no. The thing about homeschooling, people often think we have to be serious about it, but you don't. You just play, and especially the kids that you've got at your age, it's often a very different thing to us coming into late teenagers years, because they're looking at careers and things have to be a bit more differently, I think, anyway. It seems to be, but not necessarily. So you're at the age that you can still play a lot and create and have fun and enjoy them being with you.
It's all about falling in love with your kids again.
Yeah.
It's all about falling in love with your kids. And if you can fall in love with your kids, you've found it.
Yeah.
And it'll just naturally flow.
If you find that, then you'll enjoy your day. You won't want to think about how to get rid of them or...
Yeah.
I was astounded when my kids were in school that people would go, can't wait till school holidays. I mean, I can't wait till school holidays are over, get the kids back. I'm like, no, I'm scampering the other way, trying to get time with my kids. So enjoy your kids first. That's what I would say.
But I'm planning on
great advice.
Once a week, and I'm playing with whether or not I'm doing it daytime or nighttime. A few people that wanted to get on, I think, work as well. So I don't know whether 1 week I do a day session, 1 week I do a night session. Don't know how to really work it yet, so I'm happy for advice on that, and even topics that are coming up. I've picked up on a few things, but I also want to kind of open it to people just having a general chat. If something comes up that they want to know, then that's how it runs, rather than me directing it in any way, unless I think we've got a lull, but something tells me we won't have lulls. We'll be able to keep on talking, no problem. But yeah, yell out or text me or anything if you guys think of something that might be a useful topic, like planning, if we need to even bring up planning. Because some people, that's how they work. They want to plan and how to plan well. You know, motivating is another one that came up. Oh, yes, I wrote that down. Well, you know what that is? I called it under balance. Okay. Meal planning, budgeting, scheduling, you know.
I want a meal plan again. I used to do it all the time, and I have lost the plot. I just
and whereas I do it all the time, and I use it all the time, and it's my survival thing. Unless I have a slack day. And another one that came up was motivation, how to motivate kids, which is why I started off about looking at people's emotions and where people are at and what's lacking. Because if you're not interested or you're struggling in one area, we need to lift that up to be able to get that motive. But there's a lot of other tools to help kids be motivated, and parents. But I thought that might be a topic for another week. And I actually yes, right. So yes or no to me, let me know, because the other one I thought of was well-being in teenagers and stuff like that is another one I wondered whether or not that's a topic on its own for parents with teenagers or not. But we discovered quite a bit of that today, didn't we? But yeah. Anyway, any other ideas for topics or anything, or we'll just I'm also just happy to go with the flow and see what comes up in questions and things as well, and just so anyone have
motivation? Definitely. And I think another one that I keep toying around in my mind is time out of the home and in the home, and what that balance would look like. I know it's different for everybody, but how that would work, because I see online there are actually so many events you could actually go to. Obviously there's cost constraints for people as well, but then what's actually healthy, you know, the whole idea of homeschooling is that you are in the home more, so but you could spend a lot of time out of home.
And see, from my point of view with kids with anxiety, we stay home a lot. We don't go to much at the moment because one child is so anxious, we don't go anywhere. Last year we're hibernating. So depending on the needs of your kids, definitely. And I think a lot of people do it too, to get the quite a range of experiences for the kids. But again, that depends on your, because you could be on the farm that Melissa's talking about and exploring a whole new experience of running your own orchard and doing all that. That's enough. For another family, a child is really like, a bit like my son, but we're not doing any of it, is engineering. So all his focus would be going on to stuff like that, for example, if we were to do that. But yeah, it's a good question, because everyone does it very, very differently as well. And again, it really comes back to your needs and your finances. And we love being, and we don't need to go out lots of places to get enjoyment or learn stuff. And again, it depends on what you want to learn. How we expect.
Having said that though, Pauline, having said that though, you are going to go through a transition of boredom, because you are unschooled, or should I say deschooling them out of, you know, normal school structure, and they're going to want to play with kids and they're going to want to meet with other kids. And if you can find something in your area that's even once a fortnight, once a week, just to get together with other kids, and maybe if there's a big excursion thing that, you know, they'll get together as one big conglomerate, you'll find that maybe just that once a month. You know what I mean? Like, that will be enough to keep on top of things, but at the same time, you've got the once a week get-togethers. But
especially if they're used to at school, they might be used to all the busyness of the kids, and different kids will take a while to adjust to that space. And you, as the instigator, well, okay, well, let's go to a park and meet up and so on. So even if it's every few days initially, and then eventually they find they don't need it anymore. And being on Kim's group particularly, they have a lot of things. They do their once a week meet up, but you don't even do that. Like Melissa said, there are a lot of excursions that come up here and there, or incursions, God, I'm being back to teacher mode, but outings that they do that that might be interest based. So no, we don't go to any of them at the moment because my anxious son won't go to any of them. But there was a year there we could go to some stuff because the oldest, who never went anywhere, we never go anywhere. Then we started to go, and now the other one says no. But again, we've been doing this for a little while, so that ain't necessarily. I said, sure, I don't want to go. Nah, don't want to go. Okay.
I probably need to go because my phone's about to die. And
Yes,
my
we
kids
better.
have never made it in space.
Yep. All right, beautiful. All right, thanks, girls.
Thank you. Lovely to meet you.
That's right.
You too. Take care, guys.
Good
Bye.
luck. Bye.
Thank you.